What's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Redefining Issued Equipment. And in this video we are going to be going over a general purpose setup and configuration for the MSV, or the modular scalable vest. Now, this plate carrier has been in circulation for a couple of years now. I finally got my hands on one of these to be able to play around with it, understand how the system works, what all entails when it comes to the cutaway system, and then some of the aftermarket products and options you have when it comes to swapping around the Cummerbund for something that may be either a little bit more comfortable and or more functional to enhance the soldier's overall ability to shoot, move, communicate, and medicate, and ultimately increase that soldier's lethality and survivability when it comes down to it. So with that, I'm super excited to be able to finally do this video. It's been a long time coming. So with that, when it comes to how we're going to break this video down, we're going to start with just kind of some general information about the nylon laminate construction, how the MOLLE is set up. We'll briefly talk about how the cutaway system is set up, so that way you guys understand how that works. And then from there, we're just going to go top to bottom of the setup that we have here. And then we'll have a lot of different injects when it comes to some things that you can do with additional pouches that we have off to the side here on the right, so that way you can determine how you want to set up your plate carrier and what this thing is really capable of, seeing that it's a pretty impressive system overall when it comes down to it. So with that, diving right into it, overall construction, this thing is pretty much made out of kind of a laminate nylon. From what I can tell, everything is pretty much laser cut, so everything is nice and tight when it comes to the MOLLE and adding pouches and accessories to the actual plate carrier. Up top here is where your cutaway system is, so you have this little flap up top that covers that cutaway pull tab. And then when it comes to cutting away the system, all you're going to do is pull this pull tab, and it's going to release these buckles that are in the shoulder straps, as well as the buckles that are here in the Cummerbund. So the way that that works, so that way you fully understand what's going on, as you pull this pull tab, and hopefully you can see it, but when you pull that pull tab, it's going to retract the sides of that buckle, and that is what is causing the plate carrier to cut away from itself, compared to some of the older systems where you had a whole cable system involved with that. So there's still a cable when it comes down to it, but the way that it works compared to ripping out the whole cable system, you're pulling this tab and it's retracting these buckles, so that way they release from the plate carrier like so. So that is how that is set up and configured, and it is pretty simple when it comes down to it. So much easier, much more end user or user friendly. When it comes to setting this guy up, there isn't as much involved with trying to run lines and all of that, or run cable through the system. So that's a huge benefit of the system compared to the old systems like the IOTV and the KDH plate carrier. With that, when it comes to some aftermarket parts and components for the Cummerbund, you do have some options. I've previously talked about some of the options with the KDH plate carrier videos that I've made in the past, but when it comes to replacing the Cummerbund with something that's a little bit more functional and probably a little bit more practical, you have the option to purchase the Arbor Arms IOTV/MSV tubes anchors. They're going to cost you about 80 bucks, and what they're going to do is they're going to replace this female buckle with a buckle and then a male portion to the tubes system. So that's what that will do. And then from there, you have the option to either purchase the Arbor Arms IOTV Flex Cummerbund kit, which will cost you about 200 bucks, or you can purchase the BCS Retro Cummerbund kit, and that is going to cost you about 100 bucks. And I'm going to be honest, just comparing the two from what I've seen on the internet, the BCS looks like a little bit more practical answer or solution than the elastic Arbor Arms. And I say that just because, one, it looks to be a little bit more rigid. You have both interior and exterior options when it comes to mulling pouches to that Cummerbund. Setup in the back looks fairly simple, and due to the way it's set up and the materials that are used, it does look like it's going to support side plates in a much better fashion, or just in a better way than the elastic flex cummerbund from Arbor Arms. So that's just from what I've been able to see just by doing research online. I am going to get those systems and then do some separate videos when it comes to setting those up on the plate carrier, but I'm pretty sure just based off what I've seen, the BCS is going to be the better option. So that is some of the options you have with all of that. I would definitely recommend swapping the cummerbund out, because what I noticed playing around with different pouches and accessories, it can be difficult to mount pouches to the cummerbund, especially right here in this section due to the tension strap, or the strap that you have to adjust the cummerbund to your body. So this strap gets in the way, which causes issues with attaching different types of pouches, especially if they're a small pouch. So I would definitely replace that when it comes down to it. With that, there really isn't a whole lot else as far as general information I want to go over, but with that, we'll just dive right into the plate carrier itself, and then that way you guys can see how this is set up. So with that, up top here we have the First Spear GRG administrative pouch. This is a good pouch to be able to run a lot of different things. You can fit really small phones in there if you're running ATAC, but it can be a little bit tight. But on the interior, you also have some pockets to run other mission essential equipment or administrative data, whether it's map data, pens, pencils, markers, whatever, notebooks, notepads, all that. You do have some options when it comes to all that. This is one of the few administrative pouches that I really like, just because of how low profile it is. So if you do decide that you're going to run a admin pouch, this is the one that I would go with. There is some Velcro on the top here, so if you want to do name tags, cell tags, whatever unit patch type configuration thing you want to do, you can definitely do that up top here, and then run your rank at the top, Velcro up top. With that, I would also recommend for every end user of this plate carrier system, throw a couple of cleaning rod sections into or in between the admin pouch and your magazine pouch with just a couple of hair ties. Those cleaning rod sections are going to help with getting ruptured casings out of a chamber in the event that that happens. And recently I've actually seen some of the new M855 Alpha 1 or that EPR round have some squib rounds to where you have a projectile get stuck in the barrel, and that's a really dangerous situation. So I would highly recommend, when it comes down to it, I would get cleaning rod sections, so that way you can punch all that stuff out of the barrel in the event that it happens to you, which is going to help keep your gun in the fight in that life-threatening situation. So with that, we do have the Tac Taylor Fight Light triple mag carrier on the front of the plate carrier, back behind everything that you see here with the Blue Force Gear triple mag panel. We do recommend that you go with something other than the Army issued mag carrier, just for the simple fact that when you look at the back of those mag carriers, the triple mag panels, the MOLLE is offset a little bit to the left or to the right, or it can be kind of centered, but when you put it on the actual plate carrier itself, it's going to offset that mag carrier to the left or to the right, which is then going to kind of make things a little bit weird when you're setting up your plate carrier and look uneven or a little bit heavy to the left or to the right, depending on how you set it up. So we recommend going with an aftermarket product that has two MOLLE straps in the middle, and then a MOLLE strap on either side, on the left and on the right, so that way you get a good kind of central setup on your plate carrier versus an offset. And then with that, depending on how you guys want to set up your plate carriers, we also recommend running the Blue Force Gear stackable 10-speed pouches. And the difference between those and what we have here is there's going to be a little MOLLE section with a pull tab up top here. It's going to make stowing and putting equipment in the carriers itself a lot easier due to the elastic that they use for their pouch, but it gives you some options for not only carrying magazines but also additional mission essential equipment depending on what you have going on. So it's more of a general purpose pouch than it is a mag pouch, but it still will double down on that mag pouch capability. Now with that, we're going to throw these mags in here real quick, just so that way you guys can see what this looks like with the mags in here. And just something to be cautious of or cognizant of when it comes to setting up your plate carrier, so that way you don't have any issues with your setup. Be a little bit tight when it comes down to it, but it's nice and streamlined, which is a huge benefit for this whole entire system. All right, so we got our mags in that mag carrier or that triple mag panel. And just one thing to be cognizant of is when you put these mags in there, Make sure that your admin pouch isn't too packed to where it's going to start pushing these mags out, and or cover the mags to where it can make things difficult to draw those mags. So just be cognizant of that. It is something that can kind of become an issue, not so much getting pushed out, but when it comes to the pouch potentially overlapping on top of the mags, that can be an issue, especially for some of the larger size plate carriers that have a little bit more moly. So just be cognizant of that. The best thing that you can do is stow those magazines inside of your mag carrier, and then just make sure that they're stacked on top of your admin pouch. So with that, moving on down to the bottom of the plate carrier, we do have our tourniquet tied into the moly system on the plate carrier, so that way it keeps this tourniquet nice and snug to the bottom of the plate carrier, which is going to be a good central location for you to be able to employ that tourniquet either with your left hand or your right hand to be able to deal with any extremity wounds when it comes to providing self-aid and or buddy aid. You do have some other options. You don't have to set this up like this. We actually have the black Trident tourniquet carrier. And the cool thing with this plate carrier compared to the other systems that are out there is you do have a little section down here at the bottom to where you can stow either tourniquet pouches like that and then transfer your tourniquet from that rubber band system to this little dangler pouch essentially for your tourniquet. So you do have an option there, and then you can run a Sharpie marker there as well. Or you can also run little dangler pouches such as the, let me double check this. This is the P-Tac gear. You can just get this on Amazon. You can actually insert this into this Velcro section right here. This is just a little bit too wide, but I'll show you how to modify it here in a sec. But what this will do when you insert it into that little channel and then tuck this tab away is you now have a dangler on the bottom of your pouch to be able to run any mission essential equipment, administrative data, and administrative equipment, and anything else that you may want to carry on mission with you. The cool thing with this too is it does have a little loop here for your tourniquet, so you can bottom out your tourniquet on the bottom. Now with that, seeing that this is more of an Amazon / airsoft product, but still pretty good quality when it comes down to it, what you are going to have to do, because this is just a little too wide on the sides, is you're going to have to take this into an alteration shop, get them to cut roughly, I would say, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch on either side of the Velcro up here. And then if you want, you can actually have them trim down the top of this a little bit, so that way it fits a little bit more snug to the bottom of your plate carrier. Have them resew all of that together, and then you can just put that back on the plate carrier and it will be good to go for whatever you need it for. So just something to think about when it comes to some options that you have to enhance the plate carrier's carryability and make things a little bit more accessible to you that you may need while you're on mission. So that is an option when it comes down to it. In addition to that, if you want to front load a med kit, you can also run the Faro Concepts Roll 1. You don't have to make any alterations to the actual Velcro. This guy will actually just slide. I'll try and do it here quickly. It'll slide right into that pocket, like so. Just tuck away nice and neat to where all that Velcro overlaps on top of each other, or on top of itself, and then it just dangles from the bottom of the plate carrier. So you can do that as well if you want to just run a med pouch on the front of your plate carrier versus on the Cummerbund. Some units are going to have an SOP for that, but hopefully this will help develop some of those SOPs so they're a little bit more common sense when it comes down to it. So I'm going to set this to the side because we're actually going to use that on the back side of the plate carrier to show you another mounting option for that. But we're going to move into the Cummerbund and talk about some options when it comes to setting up all of your comm stuff. So the way that we have our comm stuff set up on this system is we have another Amazon product, but it's the Top Tac Pro Tactical Breech, Tactical Binding Retainer. So it's these little guys right here. They come in a set of 2, and you can just run these through the moly like you can kind of see here. So this little tab portion is behind the moly section right there, and then these loops protrude from those moly laser cut slots, and then you can retain your push to talk via this little system. So it's a really cool system to be able to retain these guys and keep them nice and neat. And then all we did from there is we added hair ties to the side of the front of the plate carrier. So then that way we're retaining that cord for the push to talk system, so that way it doesn't get caught on the environment, it doesn't get pulled away or cut or whatever. So that way it helps just protect your equipment from the terrain and from that tactical environment. With that, you do have some options with the interior MOLLE as well as the exterior MOLLE to be able to mount your radio system. I know a lot of guys are probably going to prefer to mount the radio on the exterior just because it's a little bit more comfortable. But if you do want to internally mount your radio pouches, you can definitely do that with a lot of different radio pouches that are out there. And then we have our antenna system that is just, again, hair tied through the system to help protect it on the interior of the Cummerbund, and then it's routed to the back of the plate carrier. You can do the same with antenna relocator systems if you want to run a long whip or a short whip radio antenna. So you do have plenty of options. We just have a body whip on here for demonstration purposes. So with that, again, you can definitely swap out these Cummerbunds with either that Arbor arms or that BCS system. I do think it is an upgrade that is necessary for the guys that are real serious about their kit. I do think you're going to get a lot more out of the system if you swap that out. So with that, when it comes to stowing your cables when you're out on mission, I would recommend wrapping your push-to-talk cable through the interior. Essentially, it comes from the exterior to the interior of the Cummerbund and then connects to your radio like so. You can potentially stuff it down in there. Depending on what battery systems that you're using, especially if you're running a battery relocation kit, can help with all that stuff and keeping things streamlined, more low profile. But you can just run your cable to there or to that connector on the radio and you should be good to go. It will make it a little bit more comfortable, and it will additionally help protect your cables by running it interior from there. So with that, I'm going to rotate this over to the back side, but before we get to that, quick note, when it comes to the Cummerbund itself, ultimately that space, in my opinion, is for the end user to determine what mission essential equipment and pouches they may want to run on the Cummerbund. So just a couple of options for you. We've got a Tasmanian Tiger. It's roughly like a 6x6, 7x7 general purpose pouch that you can throw on the side here. This is a good option, doesn't take up too much space, pretty narrow when it comes down to it. You've got an external pocket. You've got some loops to be able to carabiner small equipment to if you want to do it that way or do tie downs. And then on the interior, you have a way of kind of keeping things organized with various Velcro options, elastic loops, and little mesh pockets with zippers and on them and all that. So that is an option when it comes down to it. You also have, this is the 511, similar to that Tasmanian Tiger. A little bit different setup when it comes to the MOLLE, but it still does the same thing. And then the cool thing with this system is there actually are little zipper retainers, so you can retain your zippers to where they won't move around on you. And then on the interior, you do have some organization options, not as sophisticated as the Taz Tiger, but it'll do the job. And then you do have a little external pouch here as well. So this actually works really well for night vision when it comes down to it. I've seen a lot of guys actually purchase this recently. So with that, in addition to those general purpose pouches, you can also run horizontal mag pouches, or we have this EOG explosives or mini explosive pouch. This is an option you can definitely use when it comes to Cummerbund general purpose pouches. You can access it from the front and the rear. It is Velcro, so it is super loud, but that's the one downside to this. But you do have this large channel. It does keep things nice and streamlined, so if you want something that's going to be a little bit more, we'll just say streamlined, instead of having a large fully packed pouch, you can run one of those on the left and on the right, or do a configuration of both depending on how you want to do things. So it is an option when it comes down to it. Just wanted to show you so that way you guys could see. In addition to that, you can also run all sorts of pouches on the sides. We have a Taz Tiger, or not Taz Tiger, but a Tac Taylor smoke grenade pouch that you can run right there. We've got flashbang pouches for flashbangs and multi-tools, so that's an option as well. and that is from Longship Designs. These are actually one of the best kind of, I wouldn't say general purpose, but multi-purpose pouches that you can get for flashbangs, multi-tools, and a handful of other things. The way that these works, just to show you real quick, you've got your pull or elastic drawstring right here with your clamp. The elastic is going to wrap around the neck of the grenade or frag grenade, flashbang or frag, and then as you pull this out, what's going to happen is these elastic retainers on, or the shock cord elastic retainers are going to essentially pull away from the grenade like so, and then it will slide right out like that. We've got the frag version right here. It's just a dummy like airsoft frag, but this is also an option that you have. They do come with flaps, so if you have to have a flap on top of it, you do have that option as well. But different options when it comes to setting up different types of equipment that you may need, and it's some of the better equipment that I've noticed in the industry compared to a lot of stuff that I've purchased. So when it comes down to it, Taz Tiger, 511, Tac Taylor, Longship Designs. There's a handful of other products if you want to spend a lot more money, but those are some baseline, really affordable products that you can get without breaking the bank. And then last but not least, if you're running a 40mm system, these are the Blue Force Gear 40mm grenade pouches. These are adjustable, so you can adjust the top flaps to be able to run various rounds, to include your star clusters, flares, HE, and all that. So you do, and then smoke if you have those as well. So you do have some options as far as being able to carry various rounds when it comes to the 40mm platform. So with that, I'm going to rotate this over, talk about the back side. I know that generally speaking, the general combat load for most infantry guys is probably still going to be 7 magazines. So down here at the bottom, real quick, we've got 3 mags up front on the front of the plate carrier, and then we've got 2 magazines here on the back. So that gives us a total of 5. You add 1 more to the gun, and then if you're running a gun belt, you can run 1 on the gun belt, or you can just stuff an extra mag somewhere in the back side of this mag panel. This is just the IDO gear kind of multi-purpose panel that you can purchase. Fairly inexpensive. A lot of soft guys have been purchasing these and been very happy with them. They're not quite as good as the Cry Precision ones, but they still do a really good job. And there are some things you can do to upgrade them and modify them, like replacing these little pull tabs on the mags, and then just tightening the drawstring or the shock cord piece. That way they help retain the mags. But keynote: if you're going to run magazines on the bottom of this thing, you have to run the magazines where the rounds or the projectile is facing up, because if you run the magazine where the rounds are facing down, these little drawstring and pull tab systems have a tendency to fall off, and then these fall right out. So if you want to run something like this, rounds face up, and then tighten these up and replace the little pull tabs to where they're much tighter, and help retain those magazines so that way they don't fall out on you when you're running, gunning, and all that stuff. But with that, you have an array of different pouches for a lot of different accessories and equipment and all the stuff that you may need. There is actually a breaching tool pouch that can extend out of the bottom of this panel. So if you're running breaching tools or manual breaching tools, you have the option to run those as well. And then there is a large pocket on the interior of this to where you can run a hydration carrier or a hydration system of some sort, so you have that water source with you. With that, we used this panel just because it was one of the easier options when it comes down to it. But if you do purchase an IDO gear or a Cry Precision zipper panel to run on the back or rear plate bag, you are going to have to purchase the zipper attachments to be able to run that. These are actually the Cry Precision ones. I would recommend purchasing the Cry Precision ones over any other version that's out there, just because it's going to be a lot more reliable. It's going to be really easy to set up, and they're actually really not that expensive. I think they're like 20 or 30 bucks when it comes down to it. So I would recommend these, just so that way you know that the foundation of your system is secure, and then you can run whatever panels you want. So just food for thought when it comes down to it. But with that, on the interior of the zipper panel, if you choose to set this up this way, I would recommend running your antenna system through the MOLLE, and then just MOLLEing pouches on top of it if you need to, but you shouldn't need to when it comes down to it, because you got that zipper panel. And then we also have our tubular nylon. So this is roughly 20 to 30 feet of tubular nylon. The intent for this is to be able to run or set up different types of pull systems or drag lines, so that way you can pull a casualty out of the open, get them behind cover and concealment, and provide either self-aid or buddy aid as needed. You can also do rappelling harnesses from this, amongst a lot of other things. So we do recommend running that tubular nylon, so that way you have the ability to do a little bit more with your kit, and then it just helps some of the other stuff that you could internally mount in here. Now with that, I'm not always a big fan of these extendable tool pouches. So an option, if you do have those manual breaching tools, you can purchase something like the Defense Mechanisms breaching tool holder. This is the version 2, but that will molly right here into the top of the rear plate bag, and then you can just slide your multi-tool or whatever breaching tool that you're running through that, and then this back panel will just conceal that like so. And then what it does is essentially creates a little bit of a gap in a channel, so that way you can slide that whole handle for that breaching tool all the way down into the pocket that essentially you've created. So I do prefer these over the systems that are in here, so that way you can protect your hydration system if you're running one, and then isolate your tools, that way they're not creating issues of their own. So with that, I do want to talk about one other option that you have when it comes to back panels, and that's going to be running just a molly system. Now this is my preferred method of running back panels, because you can custom tailor and set this up in numerous different ways to essentially facilitate your kit being able to carry that you're going to need based off of your mission, operational environment, and duty position. So same setup. You do have the extension for the breaching tools. You do have the pocket up top here to be able to throw a hydration system in there, and then you do have all of this molly to be able to custom set up your plate carrier to your specific needs. So you could do a horizontal pouch on the bottom with a general purpose pouch up top here, and then run an array of different pouches, whether it be smoke, flashbang, frag, 40 millimeter. You could essentially set something up like you see here, to where you have general purpose stuff and specific stuff, or specific pouches for whatever you may need. So just some options when it comes down to it. But one last thing before we close this video out that I do want to talk about, and that is going to be the bottom of the rear plate bag. So pull this off real quick so it's a little bit easier to see. But at the bottom of the rear plate bag, you have this little Velcro section right here. And the nice thing about having this little bit of the Velcro section is you can open this up. And this little section right here is just kind of on its own, and then you can pull it all the way open, which will then allow you to manipulate your Cummerbund system and all that, and set all that up. But with just this little pocket, what you can do is you can take your Roll One med pouch, if you want to purchase one, Velcro it to the bottom closing flap, and then push this into that small pocket to where your med kit is now just a dangler on the back of your plate carrier. It's out of the way. You can still access it from an ambidextrous aspect, where you can pull it from the left or from the right, depending on hand dominance or what hand may not be injured. So you have the option to be able to set this up on the backside, which is going to really open up the Cummerbund space for other equipment, and isolate that med kit to the back, keep it out of the way, keep it protected, because the back panels will typically cover it up just a little bit, but it just gives you a little bit more options, and it's fairly comfortable when you're inside of a vehicle if you have that on. It kind of fills that gap in between your plate carrier and the bottom of the seat, so it gives you a little bit more support when it comes down to it, or at least I've noticed that. So that is an option when it comes to med kit setup. I do think it is one of the best ways of setting things up on this plate carrier. That way you're not loading a med kit either to the left or to the right, compared to, or when it comes to some of the other SOPs that I've seen. This keeps it more central, gives the end user a little bit more comfort and is just a little bit more practical when it comes down to it. So with that, that pretty much sums up the whole entire setup for a general purpose setup and configuration for the MSV. There are a lot of options that you can do with this thing, a lot of things you can do to it. So with that, if you guys have any questions, please feel free and reach out. We will help you out in any way that we can in answering those questions. And with that, like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.